Gods in Old High German. In this video, I'm going to be reading a list of words and names of gods in Old High German, of course. Bear in mind that these names or words for gods, majority of them are really references to Greco-Roman deities, but expressed through an Old High German rhetoric. Like, that of itself is cool. And some of it may actually be epithets for the Christian God as well. So, and again, the way they'll express it would be through an Old High German rhetoric, if you will. So, let's begin. Gott. Gott. This word for God is very interesting because it's used very broadly, where this could very well mean anything from a lower divinity of like a spirit to anything that of a higher demigod to the supreme being. That's interesting of itself. Halbgot. Halbgot. Literally half god, or if you will, demigod. Pretty straightforward. Erdgot. Erdgot. Now, literally, this means earth god. I guess in the context of when this was written, it may refer to the Greco-Roman idea of demigod, like a hero, or another context would be like a male earth deity, if you will, god of the earth, if you will. Luftgot. Luftgot. Simply air god or god of air. Anaburto. Anaburto. Now, this is pretty interesting name or word for a god. It's just literally, it's like, well, I mean, it's translated here as god of birth, but if you were to literally translate it, it's ana, meaning on. Then we got burt, which means birth, but then we have this final o, which denotes a male actor, a male agent. So it's like he who on birth or something like that. So it's a god of birth. Have the Latin gloss here of like genius, or you could translate this as possibly a guardian spirit or what have you. So, responsible, a deity responsible for birth or what have you. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Anaburto. Giswāsgot. Giswāsgot. This means domestic god, but to go even deeper, Giswās, it means familiar, stealthy, private, dear. It is cognate to Old English swas, which means own, dear, gracious, pleasant, and the Latin gloss here is penete. I'm assuming that's like a reference to the house deities or whatnot. So, yeah, and this is the Old High German way of expressing this. So, I guess in this context that the word Gott is actually used kind of very broadly, like anything from a demigod, right up there with, I'm gonna use a Vedic example, like Indra, king of the gods or whatnot, right down to a lower divinity, to like a domestic god, a house spirit or what have you. So that's pretty interesting of itself, how the word god in Old High German is used from that big spectrum. Heimgot. Heimgot. Home god. Literally, home god. And the Latin gloss, or the note I have here, is penates. Yeah, house spirits. Yeah. Let's move on. Erdgot. Erdgot. Literally, hearth god, and this is referring to a hearth, or if you will, a fireplace, whatnot. So, pretty straightforward. Fiurgot. Fiurgot. Literally fire god, or god of fire. So this is a reference to the hearth god, if you will. Or in general, really, you could use the same name and mean like fire god, like the god of fire, right? Or what have you. So, this could very well be another epithet. It could be an epithet of like the hearth, the hearth god, or what have you. Moving on. Husgot. Husgot. Very straightforward. House god. Erdgot. Erdgot. Literally garden god. as well, I also read that it also could refer to consecrated vegetables, if you will. But go even deeper of like the name itself. I mean, gart is also cognate to English yard, so like an enclosure, right? So this could be, you could translate this as like the god of the enclosure, if you will. So pretty straightforward. I mean, you could translate it as garden god, but in the same way you can translate it as yard god. Moving on. Althgot. Literally old god, and this is maybe a reference to Saturn. From my source, the entry for this word it says like oldest of the gods, if you will, or the eldest of the gods, if you will. So so old god. So Althgot. Zwīfalgot. Literally doubt god, or if you will, god of doubt. Pretty straightforward. Liumunting. Now, this is a cool name because the first part here, Helliumunt, this later became today's German Leumund, and this means reputation. Reputation, and it's a legal term. And it's so cool that you have like a name of a deity that's like of fame and generosity and whatnot, and that ing here is a patronymic. It's like son of, Liumund, son of Liumund, right? So that ing is kind of like the surname today in English, like Johnson, right? So who knows? Could this be a relic of an older deity that we don't know yet about? Irmingot. Now, this is an interesting name of itself because for those of you who are familiar with Germanic pagan history, we know well about Irminsul, which means like great pillar, but here we have Irmingot. From the entry from the dictionary I've been using, it's referencing to Jupiter or Jove, if you will, as well as the Christian God. So maybe that could be a clue into pinpointing what Irmin means. Well, Irmin means like great, like gargantuan, huge, like great size or whatnot. So like it's, but it's interesting how it's referred to here as a god of heaven, I guess in a Christian context, or Jove, if you will, whatnot. So yeah, it's this is a very interesting word of itself. Let's move on. Tolgunning. Now, this is an interesting name for a deity. This means concealed god, if you will. And I need to break this up a bit. So we have I need to break this up because this is a patronymic. It's so the son of Tulgan, so if you will. But Tulgan itself means secret or mysterious. Yeah. So concealed one, or if you will, son of the concealed one, if you will, because we have this ing here, which is a patronymic. So that's pretty cool. Moving on. Mistgot, and this is literally, believe it or not, dung god or manure god or whatnot, and the Latin, gloss here is like sterculus. I don't know that deity, if that is one or what have you, but yeah, there is a word for dung god, if you will. So yeah. Hīgot, literally marriage god, or if you will, god of marriage, if you will. Yeah, moving on. Fiurgot. Now, this word here is interesting, or this name is interesting, that fuotar is cognate to the word fodder in English, cognate to our English word food, and fuotar, meaning fodder, means food, provisions, and it's literally fodder god, if you will, and it's, according to the entry, it may be related to the Greco-Roman deity Pallas, So like god of flocks, shepherds, livestock, and whatnot. So, but on a general way of translating this, the dictionary I've been using says god of pastures, if you will. Moving on. Wīggot God. And this is literally pasture god, or this might be an epithet of the previous deity before, but who knows. So yeah, it's literally pasture god and whatnot, so pretty straightforward. Arzātgot God. Now this is another interesting one. It's you could translate it as god of physicians, but it's literally medical doctor god. So medical doctor god, Arzāt means medical doctor. So that's pretty cool of itself. Skazgot. Now literally this is scat god, if you will, and it's has to do with money, and or if you will, you could translate it as god of wealth, whatnot. This may be a reference to the Greek deity Mammon. So I'm assuming this is a deity of wealth, whatnot, and not many people know this, but the word Schatz here in Old High German became later Schatz in today's German. The word Schatz is used romantically, like to, so if you're in a relationship, oh, mein Schatz. Moving on. Pechgott. Now this is a word for like hell god, if you will. Pech, you could translate it as hell, but that's not its a literal meaning. Its literal meaning is pitch, in terms of like a sticky substance, like tar, if you will. So that's what is meant here. So yeah, moving on. Hellagot. Literally hell god, and this could very well be a reference to the god of the underworld, or in the Greco-Roman context, Pluto, perhaps. Moving on. Hellajovis. Now this may be a reference to Pluto again, but it's definitely referring to a god of the hell or the underworld or whatnot. So yeah, whether that V there is pronounced like a V sound, or it could very well be like a F sound. But knowing that this is Latin, Greco-Roman influence and whatnot, I'm willing to bet it's on the V side of things. So, but yeah. Anyway, moving on. Mistgot. Literally sea god or lake god. This could very well be a reference to Neptunus or Portunus, so a god of the sea, if you will, or if you will, sea god or lake god, if you will. Moving on. Tehangot. Literally god of the 10. If I were to translate literally, it'd be just 10 god. So, god of the 10. Pretty straightforward. Moving on. Wīggot God. Literally war god, or if you will, god of war. This may very well be making reference to Gradivus Mars, or Mars Gradivus, or not. So, moving on. Nahtolf. Now, this is a very interesting word in itself. Literally, this is night wolf, because this is a contracted form of, you have Ulf here, but it's normally you'd see a name like, see a name would be like this. This would be the full form of it, but we see a contraction here, which is interesting. So this is translated as god of night, which is really interesting. So we have this night wolf, but like at the same time, the entry also describes this as like a demonish sort of being and whatnot. So this makes you curious, what could this be referencing to, and why this usage of word. Again, could this be a hearkening to an older being that we don't know about, whether that's a lower divinity or a god as a higher divinity? Who knows? Willolf. Now, like the previous name. This is another contraction where if Ulf normally be like Willolf would be the full thing. But anyway, so this is translated as like God of will, approval, agreement, and whatnot. So yeah, so this makes one wonder, like what kind of deity is this? Like where do they rank on the hierarchy here? Is this really interesting stuff, I have to say. I have a note here. It says, consus. I don't know whether that's a lower Roman deity or what have you, or maybe not, or just a word, but yeah, but it's cool. Willolf. Moving on. Wīggot. Now this is pretty straightforward. Wine god, and this is a reference to Bacchus, if I pronounce that correctly. So yeah, wine god, ween god, Wīggot. Pardon me. Skazgot. Literally place god, and you could very well call this a local god, a local deity. Skazgot. Very straightforward. Liutgot. Now this is an interesting one. So Liutgot, this is like national god. So this is referring to a god of the people, of a specific people. Because bear in mind, these were, they were in tribes, right? So so they would have a particular deity that they would, give homage to and whatnot. So that's cool of itself. Liutgot, so literally people god, whatnot, or god of the people, if you will. Or national god. Cool. Ingoumo. Now, before you make any judgments, this is not, and I repeat, this is not related to the god Ing, etymologically speaking. All right, and I'm gonna get into it and why that's the case. This is a preposition meaning in, and this is this final O here is to denote a male agent, and an actor, male actor, and this is part of a verb of gumen, meaning to feed, to care, to guard, if you will. So, and this is having this O here. It's like he who guards or he who feeds or whatnot, and the in part must be like something intimate, right? I'm assuming. So yeah, this is translated as patron god, if you will. I mean, in a very literal sense, you can translate it as in guardian, if you will. Beflichtgot. Now, this is a pretty interesting one. It's translated here as supreme god, whether this is a reference to the Christian god or what have you. But the interesting thing is that this word here, it means care, but in the context of like shelter. So literally the god that cares, or the shelter god, if you will, and whatnot. And here, according to my dictionary, it's translated as supreme god. I guess so, in the context that it may be used in. But yeah, it's interesting how this is the word that's used for it, supreme god. But let's move on. Tuomgot. And it's interesting how this is translated as supreme god, but let's translate this literally. So we have this part here, tuom. This means a number of things. It means power, situation. It means judgment. This is cognate to Old English dom, which later became doom, as in judgment. So it makes sense in a Christian context that how this word here would be translated as supreme God. This would be like an epithet for the Christian God. Yeah. Himmelgot. Very straightforward. Heaven God, or God of heaven. This very well could be an epithet for the Christian God. Or, if you want, you could take this word and apply it to Lord Indra or Jupiter, or like who's the Lord of Heaven, if you will, in that context. But given the historical context of Old High German, you know, likely this is a Christian epithet, or maybe by by extension to Jupiter as well. Moving on. Wodan. Wodan. Now, obviously, for those of you who know who Wodan is, he's the king of the gods. Yeah, Wodan. I mean, pretty straightforward. His name is attested in the second Merseberg charm. So, yeah, Wodan. Phol. Phol. And this is the other deity mentioned in the second Merseberg charm. Yeah, so, yeah. And that's the end of this video. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you're new, and if you really like the channel, please become a patron at my Patreon page down below. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.